Hey everybody, Lonnie here. So we're moving forward with this real-time dashboard with OSIsoft, PyWeb API, and AngularJS. This part we're going to be talking about AngularJS and how that all goes together. AngularJS is a framework that's produced by Google. Now you may be aware that AngularJS 2.0 is coming out later on this year. So at the time of this recording, Angular 1.5 was still is still being used. I have used both versions and I'm really excited about 2.0 coming out, but right now 1.5, the latest version, is really what you should be using in any kind of a production system. Certainly anything you learn in in the 1. Angular 1 version will be very useful in the Angular 2 version, and I'm pretty excited about Angular 2 coming out. And the cool thing is that everything you learn in 1 pretty much is still going to be applicable to 2. It's just 2 is actually simplified quite a bit, amazingly enough. So don't worry about if you're wondering whether you should be investing too much energy in Angular 1. I'd say it's worth the investment. Everything you learn in 1 will be for the most part applicable to 2. So the concepts of routers, views, and controllers are all there. So anyway, this will be a good introduction if you haven't used Angular before. And when Angular 2 is out, I'm sure that I'll update this series to convert everything over to Angular 2. And that actually might be a good video on how to convert a project from Angular 1 to 2. So we're going to be diving right into Angular and creating our model views and controllers. Now I have one other slide that I wanted to show you, and then we'll get to programming. But we're going to be working on these views and controllers, and we're going to be using this router to move between a couple of views. And the factory we'll be doing a little bit later when we get into how we're going to populate the application with data. So we'll be focusing on these 3 components within our client application and using Angular for all 3 of those. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to Visual Studio. Now, if you remember, where we left off, we basically had our framework for our dashboard laid out, but really nothing's happening. I click on these 2 different items, and nothing's going on with at all. So we'll go ahead and start adding in all of our Angular stuff. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a new folder here. And we want to call that views. And I like to organize, we're going to create a JavaScript file here. I like to organize, keep all my views together in one folder, and then if it's a larger application, even break those views into subfolders from there. But we're going to have 2 views here. One is going to be called the summary. And this is our JavaScript one, so we're going to call this a controller. And for the JavaScript file, and then we're also going to create the summary view for the HTML file. So I'll go ahead and add the HTML page here, and we'll call these summary view. So typically what I like to do is just name the view, and the controller and the view have they have the same prefix, so we know these belong together because they're both summary. We don't need this HTML in here, and so now we have two empty files. So the first thing is, let's go ahead and do our set up our controller here, and I'm just going to copy some code in, and we'll talk about what that's doing. So bringing in this this code here, it's just 5 lines, and really that last line isn't, it's just some closures. But we're looking at, we have this idea of a module in Angular. So anything this Angular dot is coming from our Angular framework that we brought in, and this dot module is saying, hey, we want to create a module, or we're going to have a module called portal app, and that's going to be this portal app is the main module, the single module our entire application resides in. So everything that we create we're going to be adding it to this module this Angular module. So the Angular module, then we're putting in a .controller here, and this is what's adding a controller. Now remember, these views and controllers are going to be working together, and we'll explore how that's going to happen here shortly. But we just need to give our controller a name, and so here we're giving the controller the name summary controller. And then we're bringing in some, this thing called scope. And I'm not going to dive into Angular super deep here. This is kind of really just get you going on it as quick primer. But what we're essentially doing at this point is we're bringing in a dependency that we're going to use within the application. And $scope is from Angular, and it's saying that it's a memory area, or what I like to think of as a piece of paper, and both the view and the controller can share this scope with each other. And so when we put something on the scope, like we're coming down here and we're creating this this variable called summary count, and we're adding it to the scope here. This is saying, hey, the scope is going to have this variable called summary count, and we're going to equal, and that's going to be equal to 2018. Once we put it, by putting it on, I mean we just literally just go .scope count. This is what makes it available now for the view to actually access, because it's on the scope. So we're bringing in the scope, and it's part of Angular, and this is how the view and the controller are actually going to share data. So let's go ahead and go over and look at how the view works. And the view is really simple. So what I want to do is the view is in HTML, so we're going to call this our summary view, and then really what I want to do is I just want to bring in that count. And what we're going to do to bring that in is we're using these double curly braces, also known as handlebars. And what this is going to do is it's going to substitute, when it sees something in here, we're telling the controller, hey, I'm looking for something that's on the scope object, and bring it in here instead of what instead of rendering just the text. So our variable is called summary count, and we literally can put it right in here just like that, and this will allow the view now to show the data that's in the controller. So this entire item will be substituted by 2018. So we'll see that in action here shortly. What I want to do is next thing I need to do is we need to actually get this view incorporated into our application. So we need to do two things. One is we have to get our router configured to tell us when we're going to try to get this view loaded in. And then the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to tell our application about the view and the Angular portal application in general. So remember, over here we have this portal app, the name of our module, our overarching module that contains everything. So we need to do those two things. So let's go ahead and create a router. And the first thing I want to do is I just want to add a JavaScript file to my base application, and we're going to call this app. And this is kind of where this is like the beginnings of where things are going to occur when everything starts up. This router is going to get loaded, and then it's going to be able to handle these URL routings that happen. All right, let's go ahead and get our router set up, and I'm going to copy in some code here that will set this all up for us for the sake of time. And this is very similar to what we're doing with our controller. We have this Angular module portal app, but now we're bringing in our router as a dependency and configuring the router here as just similar to how we brought in $scope. Now we're bringing in the route provider, and the route provider is what we set up the router off of. This ng route, this is a dependency that's coming in as part of our the overall module that we're creating. So we'll bring in, when we bring in our charting, we're going to add it to here, as you'll see later. But for now, we're just going to bring in the router, and we're going to use the router. And really, there's just two things we need to set up here. One is when the summary is hit, we're going to when it's requested, we're going to use the summary controller. And the other thing is we want to use the summary view. And this is the template URL. That's telling us where that summary view lives. We're also going to be adding in the production controller and view. And we're just doing the exact same thing. When we get that set up, this will take us to the production, and we'll do that after we get the summary one. And if we don't know where we need to route to, then we're just going to load in the summary view. Okay, so that gets the router set up, and that's how we're going to get to our view, because we know the name of our controller. It's been added to the portal app when we came over here, and we added it right here, and then we know where our view lives because we're giving it a path to get to our view. So that's how we know about both of those two things. We're telling the router where these things are located, and then we're just saying, hey, when somebody requests a summary, which is going to happen off of our indexed HTML page, when somebody clicks on that, this is the summary here, and then if they click on the overall operations portal, they're going to also make a request for the summary page. So what we don't have, the missing part here is how does this application know anything about what we just created? So let's do a few things. One is we need to come into here and we need to add our scripts. Okay, and these are our application scripts. And I like to just do that so I can keep things organized, and I know what I've created and I know what libraries are brought in. But we need to add this app.js, so we know about that one. And then we also need to add our summary controller here. So any JavaScript files that we create, we need to make sure we drop them in here as we're going forward. Okay, so we know about the scripts, but we also need to bind this to our content so that we know we know how our Angular components are going to interact. So here we use this. This is a directive, and it's called ng-app. And directives are part of the Angular terminology, and you can think of them as like custom behaviors that can be applied, or behaviors that can be applied to elements, is the way that I like to think of it. So this body is an element, and we're going to assign this directive to this body, and this body now is going to be aware of our application because we're using ng-app, and that's the whole purpose of that directive, is to tell Angular and tell the content, hey, the application that you're going to be using, anything within this body, you're going to be using our module, and the name of that module is called, if you remember right here, we called it portal app. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll come into here and we're going to make this equal to portal app. Now our HTML, our index page, which loads up at the very beginning, is going to know about this portal application module because we're using this directive. Now the other thing that we have is, remember, so this will tell us about the portal app, and then we'll be able to load in that router configuration. But now, when the router over here has a controller and a view, what is it supposed to do with it? We haven't told it anything. So the last thing that we need to do, it's very simple, is we just need to come into here and we got to tell this application where to load the view. And the view, I want to load it within this container here, this Jumbotron. I want to load it in here. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put in another Angular directive, and that's called ng-view. And ng-view just means that, hey, the router is going to place any content from whatever view it is within this div element, okay? And so in other words, when a view gets loaded in, like if this is a summary view here, it's going to take this content and it's literally going to do something like that. And it's going to put it in there. And it's going to be dynamic. So when we go to a different view, a different content will get loaded in there. And because we also have a controller associated with it, that controller information will also get placed within there as the view is rendered. Okay, so we're not going to put that in there because we don't need to. The router takes care of that part. So that is all we really have to do to get this set up. So let's go ahead and try running it and see what happens. And so you can see that we have, let me go ahead and let me get this. Okay, so you can see that we have the summary view automatically loaded up. I can click on the operations portal and the summary portal, and this view is loading. And you can see, pretty cool, we have that 2018 there. That's on that scope that the view and the controller, for the summary view and controller, are exchanging that information. If I come over to production, nothing's happening yet because we don't have a production view. So let's go ahead and add that in. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and I'll copy these two. I'm going to copy my my controller, and we'll just call this the production controller. And the production controller, we're just going to change the names here. And this is the summary count, so we'll call this production count. And we'll give this a different number. And everything else is going to be the same. We're going to add this production controller to the module app, to the Angular module portal app. And then the other thing is we'll go ahead and we'll create the production view here. And we can go ahead and change the last one. And this will get the production view all set up. Now, the one thing that we need to do, which I usually forget, is we need to come back into our index HTML, and we need to add in this production controller here so that we'll actually be able to find it. All script files will go in here. So now, if you remember, over in our router here, we have when we are asking for production, we are going to use the production controller, and we're going to find this view, and we're going to bring those together, and we're going to insert that into the view. So let's go ahead and see how well that works for us. So summary view loaded, and then I'll click on production. You can see we have our production view and our production count, and we have our values changing. So that's really cool. We can come over to summary, we can see the values changing there. Production, we can change it there. We click on operations portal, that brings us back to our summary. And then if I press F12, we can just double check, make sure that we're not seeing any errors when we're loading up. Everything looks good, and so we're all set. And there we go. Okay, so that takes care of this part. Hopefully that very quick introduction to Angular made some sense to you. Remember, we're just really talking about routers, views, and controllers, and we're just linking it all up to show you how it all ties together. Not going in depth as far as how all that happens. There's a whole thing around directives and everything like that. So I really recommend that you take some time, learn Angular if this is something that you think you would use. It's a great framework. I've used it quite extensively now, and I'm really happy with it. There are other ones out there. This is not the only one out there, but it is so widely used. It makes it it makes it nice when you're going out and you're trying to find information on how to do some specific thing. Somebody out there has actually already done it probably, and so you don't have to spend a huge amount of effort trying to reinvent the wheel. So anyway, I'm Lonnie. I hope this video series is encouraging you to dive into the web application world and build some dashboards. We'll talk to you in our next part. Bye-bye.